One of the most common things you might use the main fader strips for is a VCA master. That's a control fader which will control any number of other fader strips. So in our setup here we have a band playing in our music show, we have some music coming back from a replay device, some other playbacks, we have a couple of guests and a presenter. So it'd be nice to have some faders to control the band, to control the different elements of the mix. There's not really a limit to the number of VCAs other than how many physical faders you can lay out on the console. So the first thing we're going to do is just assign maybe 8 VCA masters, which should be plenty for this setup. And I assign those onto the fader strips in the same way we assigned input channels earlier. So first of all, go to the Access Assign panel by pressing Access Assign. On the touch screen, choose the type of channel you want to assign, which in our case is a VCA, and we'll choose VCA number 1. And then we'll use the first last button on the strip assignment and press the fader select on main fader strip 1 and then main fader strip 8 to assign our range of VCA masters. I can see instantly that these are VCA masters because of the blue colouring on the Lavo backlight displays. Remember, as always, to press Escape because we've now finished the fader strip assignment part of the operation. Now we have our master faders, we want to assign channels to that VCA control master. So let's use this first master to control the different channels from our band. Press Select on the VCA master, and then in the same way we assigned channels onto sums and groups earlier, we can use the same technique to use fader reverse assign onto a VCA. So if I reach across, I can assign all of the input channels that are coming from my band onto VCA number 1. You can see this by the red select buttons that they're assigned to VCA 1. You can also see at the top of the channel display that those channel strips are now assigned to VCA number 1 as well. If I select my next master, let's use that to control, for example, our music and playback elements of the mix. And perhaps we also want a VCA master for our microphones in the studio, so our guest and our presenter. You can now see from the top of the channel display that I have VCA masters 1, 2 and 3 in operation. What's quite useful at this stage is to maybe change the colour coding of those VCAs because everything looks blue to me rather than being easy to distinguish. And again, I can do that by selecting the VCA master, going to the channel config display and choosing a different colour for each master. So let's make our band pink and our playback elements that turquoise colour, and I'm happy with blue for my microphones. The other thing we can do is also name the VCAs on the fader label displays. Because this is a control channel, we don't do this in the signal list as we would for other signals, but if we select the VCA master, we can then type in directly to the label field at the top of the GUI. So I'm going to label VCA 1 is my master for the band, VCA 2 is my music and playback, and VCA 3 is going to be for my mics. Okay. When I now switch the labels over to inherit source as my usual mode of operation, I'll see those new user labels. So now I have a master fader controlling all the elements of the band mix. When the band's not playing, I have a fader I can bring up the music and the playback, and I have a master fader for the different microphone elements. I can also use a VCA to control things on a lower bank or layer. So for example, On the second bank of fader strips, there's a part in the programme where the presenter is going to talk to some guests who are phoning in, and we also want to have a little bit of audience during that part of the programme. So I'm going to go back to my first bank and use VCA 4 to control, for example, the level of the audience. So again, once that destination is selected, I can switch bank to bank 2, fader reverse, and assign the audience channels to that VCA master. Now I can control the level of the audience from my upper level at all times, even though those changes are actually happening on a lower bank and layer.